Hey everybody, welcome to video 5 of the Guitar Chords 101 video course. And in the last video we discussed intervals on the fretboard. We took a look at intervals with root notes on the 6th, 5th, and 4th strings. And now it's time to have some fun and start actually building some chords. I also want to discuss the term harmony. Harmony refers to multiple notes being played at the same time, and it can be intervals or a full-blown chord. The term can also pertain to chord progressions that accompanies a melody. And for this course, I'm just using it in terms of chords and chord construction. And like I mentioned earlier in the course, a chord is defined as 3 or more notes played at the same time. And a chord usually consists of thirds stacked on top of each other. Sometimes major thirds, sometimes minor thirds, it just depends on the chord. And I say usually because there's another way to build chords based on fourths, and this is called chordal harmony. But for this course I'm only going to stick with tertian harmony, which is harmony based on thirds. Okay, so let's start our discussion by talking about 3-note chords, and these are called triads. And they're usually the first type of chords that people learn when they first start playing the guitar. They were for me. And these are going to consist of a root note, a third, and a fifth. And many of the open chords, like the caged sequence of chords, are just triads, with many of the same notes played in different octaves. For instance, the first chords I learned several years ago were the open G, C, and D chords down on the first 3 frets of the neck. The open G chord is played on all 6 strings, and it consists of 3 G notes, but they're all in different octaves. So the point is, although that a triad can be played on more than 3 strings, it still only consists of 3 actual notes. And you can see those 3 notes indicated by the separate colors here. So as you probably already know, every chord has a name, and the naming convention for a chord is going to be the letter of the root note, followed by some sort of quality, and then any extensions that may be included in the chord. An example would be a C major 7, C minor 9, C13, and so on. And by the way, the C13 is a dominant chord, and we'll hit on those in the next video when we talk about 7th chords. Chord qualities can be major, minor, dominant, augmented, diminished, or half diminished. And there's also a quality of suspended, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. These names are what tell us what intervals the chord has. Every chord is based on a formula of certain intervals, and these qualities and extensions will tell us what notes are in this chord. So let's start with the easiest of the chord formulas, the major chord. The major triad chord formula consists of a root, major third, and a perfect fifth. All major chords will have major thirds from the root in them. That's what gives it that happy sound that we associate with major chords. On the other hand, the minor chord formula consists of a root, a minor third, and a perfect fifth. So to make a chord minor, we just simply lower the third by a half step. And the fifth stays the same. It's pretty simple. Okay, to make an augmented chord, we take a major triad, and we just raise the fifth a half step. So the augmented chord will be a root, major third, and an augmented fifth. And to make a diminished chord, you take a minor triad, and you lower the fifth by a half step. So the diminished formula is a root, minor third, diminished fifth. Although I briefly hit on this before, you might be wondering what the difference is between a minor and a diminished interval. Just remember, a minor interval is a half step below a major interval, but a diminished interval is a half step below a minor or perfect interval. I know that's confusing. So if we lower a fourth or a fifth, which are perfect intervals, by a half step, that makes them diminished. But to make a major second, third, sixth, or seventh diminished, we have to lower it by a whole step. Or basically, to say it another way, we have to lower a minor second, third, or seventh by a half step to make it diminished. And in 12-tone equal temperament instruments, like the guitar, this is going to create a lot of inharmonic equivalence. Okay, so in this video we've covered triads, and we've discussed 4 chord qualities of triads. And next we're going to add sevenths to our chords and talk about dominant and half diminished chords. Seventh chords are much more common in jazz than triads, so if you're a jazz lover and you aspire to be a jazz musician, then you're going to need to pay attention to the next video. So I hope this info is starting to make some sense to you and the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together on chord construction. I want to thank you for watching and look forward to talking to you in the next video.